Welcome back to Spencer FYI, and we're going to talk to another mental health provider here in Spencer. We're going to talk a little bit about First Responders Foundation, correct?
Correct.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, your experience, and then your organization.
Sure. So my name is Meredith Frasher, and I have been practicing probably off and on in different fields of social work for several years. I have worked in a residential care facility as a social worker, a couple hospitals as discharge planner, or the person who needed to find beds for people who are in a mental health crisis. And I've worked at a nursing home doing activities and social work stuff. And more recently, after receiving my LISW, been doing more therapy, clinical therapy.
Okay. And what is that? Your practice? What is the name of your practice? And what do you?
It's called Grit Therapy, and it's outpatient therapy for people 12 to 65. I serve really all populations, men, women, everyone I accept and see.
Who has access to your services?
Anybody has access. I'm sure my number or email will be listed, so anybody can call that number or text to set up an appointment with me. And I do take most insurances. One that I recently got, which I know is a big one, that a lot of carriers don't, or a lot of providers don't carry, is TRICARE. And so just wanted to put that out there that I do offer that as well.
Need referrals or anything like that?
Nope, just call, and what I do is I just take down the basic information, name, number, things like that, insurance company, and then I email paperwork to the potential client, and then once they fill all that out, an email comes back to me saying it's completed, and then I reach out and we set an initial evaluation up.
Okay. Why do you choose to specialize in certain areas or certain populations?
Sure. I would say that the population I like the most is probably teenagers. And that is mainly because I struggled with my own mental health when I was a teenager. And then again, when I was a young adult, when I developed postpartum depression. And so I just feel that connection there just due to my past experience, and just feel like I can put myself in their shoes fairly easily. So, yeah.
Do you find that that's maybe an underserved area?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. I think it's hard for some adults to realize that kids and teens are going through a lot right now than we ever did as kids. There's so many different things being thrown at them that weren't thrown at us when we were in school. And home life is a lot different than it used to be. And so I really think that population really deserves a lot of attention.
Are there any warning signs or anything that maybe folks should be looking for that could trigger or could indicate that they are struggling?
Sure. So one is there's a fine line, I think, but isolation is a big one. But when you talk about teenagers, that's kind of normal. But when it gets to be just, constant, having a hard time getting out of bed, skipping responsibilities, things like that, that's when you need to start asking some questions about what's going on and, looking for professional help if need be.
Do you find that they're reluctant to do the therapy, or are they open to it?
Honestly, this is a big change, but honestly, I feel like teenagers and kids are actually really open to it. Older people, not so much, but I've found that they actually appreciate that. They're needing somebody to talk to, and somebody that's not their parent and doesn't have any bias either way. So I think it's really well received, actually.
Okay. All right, awesome. I know we're kind of here more to talk about the First Responders Foundation. So tell me a little bit about that and your affiliation with that.
Sure. So I was contacted by the CEO of First Responders and asked if I wanted to kind of create or have a chapter here in Northwest Iowa, because there's a big need. And it would cover some of the surrounding states, so like South Dakota, some Minnesota, and I think maybe some Nebraska. And so because I have experience with first responders, I thought I'd just kind of take on the challenge. My dad is a retired paramedic from Cedar Rapids, and so I know firsthand what that lifestyle looks like and what some of the family members go through when they have a family member that's a first responder. And so I agreed to do that. And I went through the training and became a certified first responder counselor. And so, yeah.
So who can you serve, and what are some of the services that you provide?
Sure. So it's outpatient therapy, and really anybody that's considered a first responder, and that includes dispatchers, people you wouldn't necessarily right off the bat think of as a first responder. I am certified in EMDR therapy, which is very useful for people who are going through trauma, either chronic trauma or maybe trauma from their childhood. And that's one modality I really like to use with first responders.
What is EM?
You're going to
challenge it?
Yeah, I can never remember the acronym. It's eye movement desensitization. I can never remember the R.
Okay.
So basically it's a technique where it's bilateral stimulation. So basically you could be looking at a light bar, going back and forth. You could be doing like tapping in. You could have even like buzzies that vibrate back and forth. But while those things are going, part of your mind is concentrating on that stimulation, and the other part of your brain is focusing more on the trauma, but able to kind of talk about it and process it in a different way, because the other half of your brain, maybe the emotional side of your brain, is focused on something else. And so it makes it easier to kind of work through that process.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, awesome. Any other modalities that you?
I do cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically how your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all connected. And so, we can use that with anxiety, depression, several other diagnoses. And then dialectic behavior therapy, which is overall learning how to deal and work with your emotions and learning to accept them. Like, yeah, they're there, and that's okay. What can I do to kind of take control of those so that I can function?
I'm sure that each patient's different, so you kind of have to figure out what works best for them.
Yep. So I just get a lot of like background information when we first start. And, when I first start with clients, there's things I want to get through, but it's all about building that trust and rapport first and foremost, because it's not going to be a successful appointment, or it's not going to be a meaningful time together if, the client doesn't feel open and honest and safe in their environment. So I've had that take several weeks to several months before, and that's okay. So that's the main thing I try and focus on first and foremost. And then, slowly building that trust, and they start giving you some of that more background information, and just kind of go from there and decide what this person needs.
I suppose lengths of therapies probably are very flexible as far as goes.
Yeah. I mean, most appointments are about 50 minutes or so, but if need be, if they need more than that, then I'm more than willing to work that out.
All right. So what do you do for self-care, and maybe how can other people kind of take that to heart and use that?
Sure. So I make it a point every day after I get off work, because I sit all day. I do cycling in my basement, and I do weightlifting, making sure I get outside at some point just for the sunshine and fresh air. Self-care is very important. In the therapy world, I guess you could say, we talk about a wellness wheel. And so if you think of it like a wheel of a tire, so each spoke has like your mental well-being, your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being, social, financial, all those things. And if one of those pieces is off balance, then your whole bike is going to not operate smoothly, right? And so same thing with your life. If one of those pieces of your well-being is not being cared for, taken care of, or it's just not working properly, then a person's going to feel off balance. And so it's about kind of what do we need to do to fill those pieces in.
Awesome. And so it's just kind of maybe feeling out what needs some repair maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. What do you see as maybe some needs within the community as a whole, and then how do first responders kind of fit into that?
Oh, that's a tough one. There could be a lot of things to work on. I think we do a good job with like mental health awareness, but making it, I guess, more accessible to students. A lot of times they have to miss school, and so that can cause some issues because they may already be struggling with their grades and stuff because of what's going on, and then you're pulling them out of school. So finding some way to work around that, even if it's like just bringing a therapist into the school to talk with kids, you know, it lessens that travel time and stuff in between. I know that Spencer has a counseling firm that they work through that's telehealth. With my experience, kids like one-on-one, face-to-face kind of stuff. And so I think if that was made available, that would make a big difference.
What about some stigmas? Maybe do you run into some of those kinds of things that, you know, mental health is a kind of a bad thing, or?
I guess in my opinion, not so much with like the kids and teenagers. First responders, yes, definitely. You know, and I've talked to my dad about it, and you know, it's the pull up your bootstraps and keep going kind of mentality, and I get that. That's that generation, but I think it's slowly becoming more acceptable the more people see the results, if that makes sense. So, are
there any warning signs or any things that folks should watch out for, like in the first responders, in the first responders, that maybe you should have that conversation that they need maybe to talk to somebody?
Right. So I would say like an increase in any alcohol or substance use, or the start of it. Just kind of withdrawing, maybe more irritability, difficulty concentrating on things, maybe just they're not feeling like they're on top of things like they have been in the past, things like that. Things that are just out of the norm for that person.
And it may not, it probably, maybe following a trauma or following a bad call or something like that, would be a time to maybe really watch for something like that?
Very much so, yep. And then those times especially, but then there's also, because of that pull up your bootstraps and move on, a lot of that stuff gets pushed down really, really far. And so at some point that's got to come out, whether it be in physical symptoms or just major meltdowns or anger outbursts, but somehow that's got to be worked with. And so even a call that happened 10, 15 years ago may need to be addressed because it's affected how everything else has been since. So.
Well, how can folks get a hold of you, or where's your office, and kind of what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, sure. So again, you can call or text to 712-363-8866. My office is located in Schwartz Chiropractic Building. I rent an office out of there. And really, you can reach out anytime. My personal phone and business phone are linked, so you know, whenever you have a chance to reach out and want to schedule something, possibly, anytime works fine.
Website or Facebook or anything like that, folks?
I do have a Facebook page. I'm still working on a website. That's slowly coming along. So, but yeah, definitely Facebook under Grit Therapy.
All right, awesome. Anything else you want to add on therapies or first responders, the First Responder Foundation?
At this time, I don't think so.
All right, awesome. Well, hopefully if folks out there, something's triggering you or you have a thought, give her a call and see what you can do, right?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks for stopping in today.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll be back with more.